Hey everybody, welcome to our first mini lesson on YouTube. Now, in class, I'm always emphasizing having beautiful and graceful hand and arm movements. And we always start our warm up with an exercise that goes over the basic positions of our arms and hands. So, what I'm going to focus on today is I'm going to break down in detail for you how we get graceful, beautiful hand movements. In particular, the hand waves. So, remember, we always start the warm up doing these waves with the hands. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how we get that nice, beautiful wave pattern in our hands. So, let's get started. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we want to look at the position. We want to look at our hand, right? We want to look at how our hand is constructed. So we see we have several parts to the hand. We have the wrist, and then we have the palm, but then we also have these knuckles in our fingers. Now we know that we have our knuckles here, but our knuckles actually start from the back of the hand. The first row of knuckles is right here. So if you make a fist, you see we have our first row of knuckles here. And that's followed by the knuckles that are in the fingers. So our knuckles actually begin in the palm of the hand. If we look at the reverse side, we can't really see it, but our knuckles really start down here in the palm. And so these knuckles, they're all joints, right? And remember what joints, the function that joints play is flexing, right? So think of a joint like, for example, the hinge of a door, right? The function that a hinge of the door facilitates is moving back and forth, flexing, right? So that's what's happening when we open a door. It's on the hinge, and the hinge is flexing to allow us to open and close. So it's the same kind of mechanism that we have in our hands. And that's what we're going to use when we make this wave in the hands. So looking at all the hinges that we have that make up our hands, right? We've got the wrist, right, which allows us to flex the entire hand back and forth. And then we have the knuckles in the fingers. So that allows us the first line of knuckles, right, that begins in the palm, right? Allows us to flex all the fingers forward. But then we also have the knuckles in the fingers. We've got two. We've got one here and one here, right? And that allows us to actually bend the finger, right? So when you're picking something up or whatever, however we manipulate our hands, we're using our knuckles to do that. So we want to articulate all those hinges in our hands to make this wave. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you're going to place your arm on your knee, and you're going to pay attention to all these hinges in your hand. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to articulate all of these hinges. We're going to start with the wrist, just flexing the wrist forward and back, and getting a feel for how this joint moves, right? Forward and back. That's our wrist. Now we're going to start with the next row of hinges, which is the first line of knuckles in our hands. The ones that actually begin here in the palm or on the back of the hand, right? So I'll flex it forward this way so you can see what's happening there. And if you see the hand turned back, you're looking at the back of the hand. You've got that row of the first row of knuckles, right? Now we have the knuckles that are in the fingers. So let's just go ahead and bend them. And you see that when we bend them, it creates this kind of curl in the fingers, right? It's kind of like a letter C. So let's just flex those hinges, open and close, close and open, close and open, close and open. Okay, so now, once again, let's articulate our joints. We're starting from the wrist. We're going to push forward with the wrist, and we're going to allow the rest of the hand to fall back. And then we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to push forward from our wrist, pushing through the wrist, and then pushing through the back of the wrist. So push through the front of the wrist, push through to the back of the wrist. Forward through the front of the wrist, push forward through the back of the wrist. So we're using our full range of motion in our wrist here. Now we're going to move to the next row of knuckles. We're going to flex these also. We're going to press forward through the palm and then press out through the back of the hand. Press forward through the palm, press back through the back of the hand. Press forward through the palm and out through the back of the hand. Forward and back. And forward and back. And forward and back. Okay, now we're going to engage these knuckles up here. Curl and press forward. Curl and press forward. Curl and press forward. So we're curling the fingers, and now we're curling by bending through the back of the knuckles, and now we're going to press forward through the front of the knuckles. Curl by pressing through the back of the knuckles. Straighten them out by pressing through the front of the knuckles. Curl and straighten. Curl and straighten. Curl and straighten. And curl and straighten. Now, as you're doing this, you want to keep the hand relaxed. You don't want to keep the fingers tight and rigid. You want to keep everything nice and relaxed, even though we're articulating all these joints. So now that we have an idea of how everything is working, what we're going to do, we're going to articulate all of these joints one after the other, starting with the beginning point in the wrist. Push forward through the wrist. Now we've got this first row of knuckles, and you see just by doing that, we've already created this kind of curve in the fingers. It just kind of happens automatically. Now we're going to push forward through the base of the knuckles, and we're going to follow that up, pushing through the knuckles and the finger. And now we're going to come back with the knuckles, push through the wrist, knuckles, wrist and knuckles, wrist and knuckles, push forward, bring it back, push forward and bring it back, push forward and bring it back. And notice that we're always starting, when we push forward, we're pushing forward, starting through the wrist, and then we're following one after the other through the knuckles. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 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 And now when we're straightening, after we bring this all the way to the tips of the fingers, again, we're pulling back with the wrist, and then everything else is following behind it. Forward, 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 back, back, back. Forward, 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 back, back, back. So everything is always starting from the wrist, going up, and then from the wrist, coming back. Forward and back. Forward and back. Forward and back. And you see, we're not really using the forearm very much at all. We're just keeping the forearm in place. And all the action is happening from the wrist up into the knuckles. Now, what do we do with the thumb? if you see right here, I'm just keeping the thumb at the side. I'm not really doing anything special with it. If you want to get fancy, you could bring the thumb here, but for right now, let's just keep it simple. We're just going to keep the thumb, in its usual position at the side of all the fingers. And once again, we're keeping the thumb just relaxed. We don't want to keep any tension there, so that we have a nice relaxed wave. So let's do it from the side angle again so that you can see. Pressing forward and rolling back, pressing forward and rolling back, pressing forward and rolling back, pressing forward and rolling back. Now, once you have that, you're going to follow by doing it with the other hand. Now, as you all know, one of my fingers doesn't work, so bear with me on that one. But as you see, if you're moving your hands in a relaxed motion, you really don't see it that much. Well, I told you, so now you see it. Okay, so after you get used to doing it with one hand, you're going to move and do it to the other hand. So choose whichever hand you want to start with. You can start with your right hand or your left. So since for the sake of argument, we started our exercise with the right hand, then you're going to follow it with your left hand. And do the same thing. Wave, wave, wave. And once you've got both hands down, then you're going to place the hands close together and you're going to do it together. So you want to think kind of like your hands are made of magnets, right? And they're being drawn together and you're pulling them apart. And once again, you see I'm really not moving the forearms very much at all. So if I were doing it over my head with the arms up the way we usually do it in class, the arms are up. Now the shoulder blades are down and relaxed. And if you can see from the side, you see that my hands are not directly over my head. They're actually a little bit forward of the forehead. So that's really the position that we want to have. And turning around, this is what we get. We have a nice long extension in the arms. And all the work is coming from the wrist and the knuckles. Starting from the wrist, moving into the knuckles in the palm, and then the knuckles in the fingers. And the shoulder blades are down and relaxed. And you see, I'm not taking a lot of space here. The hands are relatively close to each other. And all the action is happening in the wrist and the knuckles. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed that. Have fun working with your waves. For those of you who are familiar with it, very good. Keep on practicing. And for those of you who are new, just keep on working. Remember, things are always a little bit more difficult in the beginning when you're starting out, but with practice it becomes a lot more easier and your movements become more vivid and more fluid. Alright? So, love you all big time. Looking forward to seeing you really, really soon. Mwah!